Good Monday morning, and it's time for another edition of When Worlds Collide. And recently, I finally got the chance to see Atlas Shrugged, the film, a film panned by practically every movie critic, uh, probably across the United States. I got to see the movie. I really enjoyed the movie. It was well done, particularly on the budget they had and the fact that there were no big name actors. And it's just a tough book to use to make a film about. And they did it in three parts, and this was part one, and it was very good. And I want to give some observations I have as a Christian, just about some things that came to my mind as I watched the movie. Not about the movie in particular. I would just recommend you see the movie and judge that for yourself. But just some observations about the movie and what I think about certain characters in the movie, particularly the protagonist, Dagny Taggart and Hank Reardon. I'm thinking as a Christian, a lot of times we place value on, the common man. If we go to a church and it's filled with people who are laborers or carpenters or teachers, the common folk. We almost think that's good. We almost have a love affair, that Jesus would have with, just the ordinary folks who work jobs 9 to 5 and do their best to get by paycheck to paycheck. We also would think it's wonderful that these people spend their valuable time outside their work, as husbands, spending time with their wives and their children, in their church, doing things relationally. And I think as human beings, we're wired relationally, and we should be in community with one another. And we should be doing things, for the glory of God, in as much time as possible we can to be worshiping Him in some capacity and serving Him as well. Um, well, here's the thing I thought about as I was watching this movie. And I also want to mention the fact that, we had a blog in our church recently about the fact that, too many people get their identity and their validation from their work. And I totally agree with that. I think a lot of people out there are working jobs and making excuses not to be involved in things, maybe with their family or with their church, because they say, well, you know, I got too much to do with my job, work is too hard. And I think a lot of times this is an excuse for them to avoid, relational things or maybe tough decisions, like if they're having trouble with in a particular issue with their wife, they may find opportunities to work longer hours at the office to avoid what really needs to be done, and that would be healing the relationship. Um, and I think these things occur. They probably occur a lot in our society. And I think there are a lot of people in high pressure jobs that really um, could scale back, and they really should scale back. However, I want to look at another factor, and this goes back to my comments about wanting to focus in on the characters of Hank Reardon and Dagny Taggart in the movie Atlas Shrugged. There are people out there wired to be achievers. They are in society what I would call the straw that stirs the drink. They do great things. They built the country, and a lot of these people work an extraordinarily amount of hours. A lot of these people, I'm sure, suffer from that as far as what people perceive of them. They figure, well, he's just a worker. All work and no play makes Tom a dull boy, so to speak. And I'm sure a lot of people wonder, what kind of father, what kind of husband these people can be if they're spending so much time on achieving great things. But I want you to think of something regarding that. Um, what if a person is wired to do great things, and it requires them to work a lot of hours, and they get great enjoyment out of it? They not get validation to make themselves feel like a better person because they work great hours, and they don't want necessarily their name on a monument to prove how great they are because they achieve great things. But they're wired to do great things. They are the people who built the country, as I said, and the people who have extraordinary gifts. A dirty little secret in our society is, we always want to say, everything's about the team, and it is. Football being the perfect example, a football team is the ultimate team. Everybody has to work efficiently for the team to have success from play to play, and ultimately to win games, score touchdowns, etc. Um, but we'd all be silly to say that the offensive lineman or the punter or everybody is as valuable as the quarterback. The quarterback is the face of the team. He is the straw that stirs the drink. He is the leader of the team. And quarterbacks, by and large, if you're going to be a professional quarterback, let's say you're a Christian, for an example, and God has gifted you with being a quarterback. And you may get married, you might want to do things to be a Christian athlete and do all these other things and, be involved in some capacity. But clearly, if you're going to use your gift as a quarterback and perform at the best level you can, it's going to require intense film study, preparation to prepare you from game to game. And a lot of time that's going to be unfathomable to the general public how much hours, how much demand, that requires. Well, someone say, well, maybe you just shouldn't do that. And football may not be the best example because maybe our society is a little bit sports crazy. And in the big scheme of things, football doesn't really matter. But a player who's a quarterback or anybody in business who has a particular set of gifts, for those gifts to actually be implemented, to be used, takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. But also, unlike a lot of the people out there who are working, on the treadmill, pushing out, tremendous workloads that they're really getting exhausted by, because a lot of times our society values jobs that are important, but they're not necessarily gifted jobs. They're just jobs that require a lot of time and energy. They're almost like glorified blue-collar, white-collar type jobs. These people are going to be tired at the end of the day, and in many ways they're not healthy because their job is taking too much out of them. But a lot of people, and I can't say specifically who these people are, but I just know they do exist, and I think the portrayal of Hank Reardon and Dagny Taggart is correct. These people thrive on this. They love it, and they love the energy expended in seeing their idea, their imagination, their creativity come to light in a way that's grandiose, fantastic. And if we're honest as a society, we like it and we benefit it too, whether we be a Christian or somebody who's just a pagan. We admire these people and we enjoy what they do. And I guess the point I'm making is, as people of faith, we always want to, pigeonhole what basically constitutes how we should manage our time. And often we would say, our time should always be spent, with the family and doing things, with our children. And if not, we don't have a balanced life. But a balanced life for me is not a balanced life for Hank Reardon. Hank Reardon could actually, Hank Reardon, for instance, and Dagny Taggart in this movie were not Christians. I mean, there's no reason to believe they were. But there could be the possibility that they became Christians. And what happens when you become a Christian? Big question. And it brings to mind a comment somebody made at one of our church meetings the other day. He says this, and I think it's very, very insightful, that he really is the same person he was before he was a Christian as he is now. He's really the same. He did mention, though, that his motivations are entirely different. And that's a good point, because he's really the same old Gene than he was when he was, in college and doing some things that may have been a little crazy. And I'm really the same person I was, when I was a youth in college or whatever. And people see me now and they haven't seen me in 20 years. They'll say, you're the same old, and it's true. But if they get to know me more and they probe a little bit, they'll realize my motivations in life are different. So in a sense, these guys who do these great things, and a lot of them probably, isolated from God in the church, if they become a Christian, who's to say they're not going to do the same things? Of course, if they end up changing their profession, now they start going on the mission field and, spending all kinds of time and energy doing creative things for the glory of God. People will say, well, that's just, the cost of, your calling as a Christian. But perhaps the cost of your calling as a Christian is to do great things for society. And the people who you are involved with, you're not going to spend as much time with them. And you're going to have to really work at trying to get the most out of your relationships and the time you spend with your wife and your children while going out doing great things. And if you would not do that thing, if you would just say, well, now that I have this identity in Christ, I'm going to give up all of these things and I'm going to spend a lot less time at my job and spend more time with my family. Not only do I have the question, are you really going to be happy doing that? I also ask the question, is that really what God wants you to do? Everyone thinks your work matters to God. What you do, in part, your identity is tied to your work. It's not all that you are, but it's part, just like a lot of other things. And I think as Christians, we got to realize the people who are the movers and the shakers in this world are the movers and the shakers for a reason, because we need them. We need them to move the economy. We need to create better innovations to make our world better. And oftentimes, I think our love affair with the common man is misplaced. And I often think of the fact that, I might be saying, I'm glad I don't work 80 hours a week. I can spend time with my community group and get energy with my relationships. And that is true. But I also wonder if a lot of the times I get my energy from my relationships and being part of the church is because basically my job is kind of dull. And if for whatever reason I had a job next week, somebody promoted me to a job that, I really liked, but it required more hours and time, and I would have to spend less time with my community group if I would really be unhappy. Maybe that would be a good place for me to be. You see what I'm saying? You could be either way. You could be working a lot of hours, be happy, if basically you're doing something that's energizing you and you feel value, and you're doing what you think you can do. And you can also have value if your job is a little mundane, in placing your energies elsewhere. And that could be helping people, being encouragement to people in your group. But nobody really can say what's perfect. And I think, the movie Atlas Shrugged really, makes a good case that for these special people, and we should honor them, we should be thankful we have them. And those are my thoughts. This was a very impromptu blog, and hopefully it's coherent. A lot of times it's not. But anyway, any thoughts? I'd appreciate them. Enjoy your day. Until next time.